So on Canada, is Donald Trump taking a jibe at Justin Trudeau on his way out? Does he actually want to acquire Greenland? Commentators initially said US was late to the polar party, with both Russia and China being way ahead of the United States of America. Is Trump trying to catch up and seal a deal in the once frozen and now fast melting Arctic Ocean region that's rapidly opening up? And perhaps the reason, 13% of the world's undiscovered oil and 30% of the world's untapped gas. And according to some reports, $1 trillion worth of rare earth metals. Is he talking about retaking control of the Panama Canal? Is it just about tariffs, or is it a move to checkmate China? Joining me on the special broadcast from Canada is Terry Milvsky, a senior journalist and author. Sushant Sareen is a senior fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. And Terry, if I could come to you first, Canada becoming the 51st state of the United States of America. Is he just taunting Justin Trudeau? Is this just mocking Canada?
Yes, it's taunting Trudeau, and it's being ridiculous. Canadians are used to this, although they're not used to this kind of irresponsible talk from a United States president. This is an idea that is using for the talk shows. There's no reality to it. However, if the Americans do seriously want to pursue it, if, for example, as he sent his son to Greenland, the incoming president wants to pursue this, at least make it look serious, okay then, let's see how many Canadians would like to give up free health care and strict gun control. I don't think there would be many, because most Canadians are very fond of those. And perhaps we should advertise, we should take a page out of President Trump's book and say, well, why don't you join Canada? Why don't you join as a Canadian province? How about Cascadia? Remember, you don't remember Cascadia, it's a legendary country on the West Coast, comprising British Columbia, Washington and Oregon, California.
Okay.
Canada have much more in common than many other states and provinces. It's silly, it's nonsense, but every time that Trump points to, oh, well, you could lower your taxes, Canadians are ready with a reply. But we can name a lot of Americans who have Canadian gun control and Canadian healthcare.
Fair enough. Sushant Sareen, is this just a flex by Donald Trump showing Justin Trudeau his place? But Justin Trudeau is now on his way out. Will this stop once there's a new leader in Canada?
Gaurav, my own sense is that, look, at one level, this is Trump being Trump. This is partly his negotiating style. Partly, I think he throws diplomatic niceties to the wind when he wants to make a point. Partly, he thinks it's a nice joke he can make at Canada's expense, or rather at Justin Trudeau's expense. But I think there's something else also behind it. And that is, Trump has a very mercantilist mentality. He probably looks at international economic relations in a very mercantilist sense, that if I'm levying so many tariffs, then, my partner should levy the same kind of tariffs. And I think this is where this whole Canada being the 51st state comes from, because the terms and conditions at which Canada and America trade, at least on paper, the Canadians get much lower tariffs when they export to the United States than the other way around. And Trump is saying that let there be reciprocity. And if you don't want reciprocity, if you want unequal treatment, or you want special concessions, then why don't you become the 51st state of America? So it's partly rhetoric, it's partly jibing. I'm sure he doesn't like Trudeau. Not many of us do anyways. So it's partly that. And I think we in India can take pleasure out of it.
Terry, Pierre Poilievre, the leader of opposition in Canada, has been quoted as saying there's no question of becoming the 51st state. Canada is a very proud country. But at the same time, he also says, yes, Canada should strengthen borders. Yes, Canada should ensure a deal that's win-win for both Canada and the United States of America. But where does Canada stand on that security aspect when Trump says the aim is not just to secure borders for the United States of America from drugs and illegal immigrants, but also secure Canada from Russian and Chinese ships?
I mean, these are serious issues, and Canada's national security effort has been wanting for many years, and Canada's allies have basically been putting up with it. because, well, Canada sort of fits comfortably under a not quite free, but very low cost American nuclear umbrella. And we are part of NORAD. We play nice with the Americans. We help them out in Afghanistan and so forth. And we pitch in to help Ukraine. We serve the American agenda to the extent possible in a country which has a pretty weak military and feels that it doesn't need a stronger one. That's the problem.
Okay.
The Canadians feel, well, why should we spend more? Because we're safe, because we've got joint patrols with the Americans in the north. We're flying around in the Arctic. We keep an eye on the Russian submarines. We don't have shipping that can match the Chinese or Russian ships as the passage opens up because of climate change, which you rightly pointed out. So well, all of that it's all fair for discussion, but I don't see what exactly do you do to Canada if Canada does not achieve the 2% target of defense spending for NATO.
Yes.
I mean, we occasionally promise that we will increase it, but what do you do exactly? Do you kick Canada out of the alliance, of the NATO alliance?
And
Do
that
you
clearly the
abandon
United
the
States
common defense? I don't see
cannot
that
afford to do. So I want our viewers to take a closer look at this region before we move forward, and I bring in Sushant Sareen for more on this conversation. Why is the Arctic region being talked about so extensively in the past several years now? Why is the US eyeing this region? Let's break it down for you. Now, there are reports that say that Arctic is extremely rich in natural resources that are untapped. It holds the world's 13% of undiscovered oil and 30% of untapped natural gas. So who will control these resources? Under the polar ice, there's an estimated $1 trillion worth of rare earth metals. And these are reports in the United States of America. Once this region and that polar ice is melting and melting very fast, in the past 50 years, it's down to 50%. Ice-free ocean is also opening up shorter routes, newer routes for trade, for shipping. China's talking about the polar Silk Route. And this is where the Asian markets and the Western markets, and take a look at those new routes. Who controls this territory? Who controls the routes? The borderline of the Arctic Ocean, and we want to show you that. Just look at all the countries where they are on the map. Once all this ice melts, every country gets a default maritime border of about 200 nm or nautical miles from their coast. Rest of that water, it doesn't fall into the exclusive economic zone of any country. It's up for grabs. Whoever can prove this belongs to them. Russia already arming some of this region. Russia's already planted a flag on the polar floor. I once again want to bring in Sushant Sareen. So let's now talk about this move on Greenland. Is this aimed at countering Russia and China, considering Russia already has multiple military bases and there are multiple exercises that are going on in that region? China's talking about the polar Silk Route. Reports suggest that America is already late to the party.
That is true. And Gaurav, this has been going on for almost a decade now. And I think the Americans, partly because they were so woke, partly they were more interested in environmental protection rather than the strategic imperatives that were contingent on, this entire polar region opening up. So I think that was very critical. And the Chinese, for example, have been sending in ships. And look, as of now, what we talk about is those three straits in the Indian Ocean, in the Indo-Pacific, right? Where China can be blocked. But if the northern route opens up, how do you block the Chinese until and unless you have land-based assets in that region? Now, Greenland becomes crucial, not necessarily as an American territory. America could just as well have basing rights out there, yes, for that, including in Canada, right? The north of Canada also straddles this entire region. And Canada is a very important country insofar as this entire Arctic politics is concerned. So I'm sure these are just negotiating kind of tactics that Trump uses in a very non-diplomatic kind of a way. But I think it requires serious conversations. On the other hand, if the ice actually melts, then we are all in trouble, aren't we? Because yes, there is climate change taking place, but if all that polar ice is going to be melting, then there are going to be all sorts of other consequences that we probably have not even factored in as yet.
Oh, absolutely. And there's so much more to discuss here on why Greenland then becomes so extremely important for the United States, for North Atlantic Treaty Organization countries to have more than just one military base in that region. Also, the Panama Canal. Now, there are reports that say China is the second largest user of the Panama Canal after the United States of America. It's also investing very extensively in the country and in the region. Is that also making Donald Trump uncomfortable? So there is a deeper meaning to several statements that Donald Trump is making, and over the next several days and weeks, we will continue to debate it. I've run out of time on this part of the show. Terry Milsky and Sushant Sareen for joining me here on India Today. Many thanks.